Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Wednesday. It is Dale Keown Day, so we're looking at the next issue in his Incredible Hulk run. This is issue 388, cover dated December 1991. Funny quick story about this issue before we get into it. That's why they're still in the bags. Just want to point something out. I did not actually own this issue back in the day when I collected comics. I was still collecting off the newsstand. Which issues were available at what time at the corner store was kind of sporadic. So, I had a few issues of the Hulk here and there and some Infinity Gauntlets and, in around the time the comics that were coming out, probably some Jim Lee, X-Men and all that stuff. But did not get this issue originally as a kid. So was lucky enough to go to Comic Hunter here in Montreal. It's one of the best comic book stores there are here in the city. So you can check them out at mark@comichunter.com. Definitely going to plug them because I found tons of cool stuff over there. They deal in back issues, obscure stuff. They just pretty much have everything. Toys, any kind of comic book paraphernalia, books relating to comic books, etc., etc., etc. So just tons of stuff. They have great dollar bins, cheapo bins and stuff. So quite a big section of that over there compared to a lot of other shops. So definitely want to help out Mark Comic Hunter and plug them here on the channel. So if you're ever in Montreal, definitely stop by there if you're looking for back issues and obscure stuff. So I was rifling through. They have a signed comic book section. You can actually rifle through and find a bunch of comics signed by the artists. So I was lucky enough to find this issue of the Incredible Hulk signed by Dale Keown. I thought for $7 that's a pretty good deal. There's no certificate of authenticity, so I can't know for sure if it's 100% legit. This does look a lot like his signature and his kind of line, I guess is how I describe it, right? Like artists have a generally, if you're perceptive, you can notice they have a you've probably noticed this where they have a specific line, right? Dale Keown's line is different to McFarlane's and all these other artists I'm kind of reviewing across the week. So the funny bit about this is, in collecting and making sure I'm filling the holes in my series that I'm reviewing, months later I actually went and bought the issue again, this time not signed, and basically for the same price. So I don't know how that works, but still a pretty good price for this issue, I think. I didn't even really check. I just grabbed it at that point. And again, mark@comichunter.com. Check them out if you're ever in Montreal. So let me just pull this out of the bag here because we're going to use this issue here, the unsigned version, as our kind of review reader copy. So let's talk about the cover. First of all, real clear signs now of like image Dale Keown. This is pretty much the level of art and the type of art you would see in Pit once he gets going on that. And there's some interesting effects going on here, like with the Hulk's blood and stuff. I don't know if this is some weird edit. Maybe the blood was red and now it's green, but there's a weird kind of overlay effect. I'm not quite sure how this worked out. I kind of like it, whether it's a mistake or not. There's just makes his blood look very gooey, I guess is how I describe it. But there's just kind of a real image feel to this shot here. Even though I think in Image, when we get to Pit, I don't know if he's still using screen tone. He might be a little bit and then eventually doesn't. But he's still using it here. And I find that's kind of a perfect kind of balance between his Marvel stuff and his Image stuff. I love the screen tone. I love when he inks himself. I do think, since his signature is just his own here in 91, that he inked this cover, and you'll see the aesthetic is quite different from the interiors, which are inked once again by Mark Farmer very competently. Does give it kind of a softer look, kind of a more Marvel look, I guess, and brings kind of some comparisons on some pages, as we'll see inside, to Alan Davis. But the cover itself, I think, is great. I assume Dale Keown designed this character. I mean, he would be right at home in the Pit comic. And just, again, the look of it, when Keown inks himself, it's just slightly rougher, slightly more kinetic, and just like, I think like most artists that I like, if they ink themselves, it's really the best version of what you like to see on their art. There are some great art combos out there, obviously, that kind of, people have talked about how that could create like a third artist almost. And there are a bunch out there, but there's still something very distinctive about a guy who draws and inks himself. So great cover, I think. Sign of things to come with Pit and Image. And let's look at kind of the discrepancies maybe between the cover and what's inside. I feel like I've seen the shot before. I don't know what it is. Is it like in a John Byrne comic? There's still a bit of the John Byrne influence in Dale Keown's art as far as I think the composition and the layouts. And right away you can see kind of not a bad inking job in any way, but just a much rounder, kind of softer, more organic feel to it. That is once again Mark Farmer doing that. The Hulk, again, I think I mentioned, is now being printed on better paper. The coloring's taking better, like just like the Wolverine issues. So at this period, Marvel has moved over to this like quality newsprint paper, I guess is for lack of a better term for it. Just better quality, thicker newsprint, and it really just is kind of a golden period for me as far as like the colors and how they sit on the page. These comics in and around this period all look good. So Peter David writer, Dale Keown penciler, Mark Farmer inker, Joe Rosenletter, and Glynis Oliver colorist. So I don't think, any of the, apart from the inking job, everyone else has been pretty stable in this, and the colors look just much better because of that better print quality. Great splash page to start off, I think. I mean, it's just kind of weird to have three guys jogging, I guess, but well done by Dale Keown. And we get some sort of weird speed effect here from Dale Keown. I don't know how effective it is. The fact that he's running to the left is sometimes a no-no in storytelling, but I guess it's meant to imply that he's running towards them, which would make sense overall, I think, in the storytelling. And Dale Keown, again, not cheaping out. Here he's given us kind of a hints as to what this character is going to look like, even though we've seen him on the cover, right? So he's still maintaining some sort of mystery until he's kind of fully revealed. But we, I guess, from the cover, really understand that we're seeing this from his point of view, or his POV. He's got the cybernetics, he's got the blades, right? He's the 90s kind of character for sure, this Speed Freak. And just, if you just compare real quick how the finish on the metal is done here on the arm, and we see him on this other panel here compared to the cover, where even though it's metal, and we get that it's metal, it's just much grittier. And the screen tone really just does something really cool to it. Again, just the art is so different, right? And the difference is in the inking. But still, Dale Keown not cheaping out on the storytelling. Tons of panels on these pages, well done. Varying from, more standard panels here to, the vertical 90s, the smaller version of it here. The negative space panel, which is always good to create a bit of, just a bit of difference in movement on a page, right? You just throw that in on a panel that it seems to work well for. Not all panels would work well with this kind of negative space effect. I mean, this one would, if you kept the ground and right just the characters, this is a panel that could work that way as well, right? A lot of them can if you really pay attention. So now we've got the B story. This was, I found out later that this was kind of a racy, controversial issue. The fact that I'm not sure if this character is gay or not. Not that it matters really. Back then, when these issues arose in the comics, it wasn't such a big deal as I guess it is today. But it's in this issue that he reveals to Rick, he's Rick's friend here, that he tells him I tested HIV positive, right? So he's like, yeah, sure. What are you telling me? You got AIDS? Not a full-blown case yet, but yeah, man, I got AIDS. All right. So this was a pretty big deal, I think, for comics. Even though, like I said, people didn't make a stink about it. It was just like, I think most people reacted, if there was any controversy, reacted in the sense of like, well, yeah, it's meant to educate people about, the dangers of that. More than anything else, right? In a kid's comic, you would have to assume that's it's not a political bent or anything like that. As today, people just analyze everything and try to ascribe so many varying ideologies to the same situation, right? It's all viewed through the eyes of politics, I guess. So we'll not get into politics, and we'll move on with this great freaking page here. Kind of just sparsely and quickly establishing shot here, put some lines down. Not much is needed for, anytime you're not doing cities and technology and stuff, it's a lot easier and quicker to get through kind of an establishing shot of a more organic, natural environment, which is kind of what we're seeing here. So what you're getting also on the page, I just noticed the sun's coming in from, because of the change of seasons, right? The sun's setting earlier and getting up later. So at this time of day, usually when I was shooting, the sun was not quite coming in through the window. So you're probably getting a bit of shadows from the trees outside. Not much I can do about that. So yeah, this great shot here, almost a splash page, right? I would almost call this a splash page. And I feel like underneath, right, the pencils that maybe Dale Keown is providing to the inker here, what you'll notice over this comic is, you know, the softer, kind of more organic Alan Davis, Mark Farmer kind of look kind of goes away a little bit on the shots where you've got the Hulk and some cool angles and splash shots. So it does feel like, you know, not shitting on the guy because Dale Keown's on a monthly schedule for this comic, or almost, right? There's a few fill-in issues. So he's definitely, you know, spending more time in real estate on, you know, a shot like this than he is on those maybe more just B stories and C stories and secondary characters. So leaving it more to the inker, I guess, to do more of the finish, because these pages here, even though they're inked by Mark Farmer, are almost, you know, the same level of Dale Keown as we're getting on the cover. Not quite. It's still kind of marvelized and softened a bit, right? But the level of hatching and stuff that we're getting here is much more in line with what Dale Keown typically does. See, once we get to the storytelling pages, you know, getting through some B and C plots, again, with the secondary characters, we get obviously a less imagified layout for the pages and a more kind of Marvel, I've talked about before, the house style, kind of mid-80s storytelling, a lot of mid shots. But I don't mind because it creates a nice dynamic between the two scenes, you know, the scenes with the Hulk and the scenes with the secondary characters. And it even works with the art, like I said, because even though maybe Dale Keown's leaving a lot more kind of open on these pages to the inker, it does, you know, on purpose kind of make those Hulk pages have a bit more impact, right? It's kind of like music. When it's always the same dynamic and the same kind of speed and stuff, you're not creating differences in contrast. Your ear gets bored of that. And just like in a comic book, your eye would get bored of always the same rhythm. Not that always, you know, and when I speak of a rhythm, like there's a kind of rhythm here, right, to the panels, almost like music, down here as well, right? Like a longer note, a short note, a longer note, a short note, almost implying how long you should spend on each panel. This is all very subjective, right? But a lot of people have discussed this theoretically, and in all art there are links, right, in how we create. So I can definitely see that in the layouts here. Down shot, always give props to that because that's a hard one I try to avoid most times, especially with the background, right? The establishing shot, down shot with lots of characters and stuff. So we got some interesting, I like the layout here. There's just something more modern about it, right? And anytime, I'm sure I've mentioned it, characters bust out of panels and stuff, I think that's great because it creates that extra level of depth. I feel like it's something maybe that's associated with like the late 80s, early 90s artists. And that's part of the reason that their art seemed to just pop more than the older school artists from the 70s and 80s, was their use of doing this, right? And kind of complicating the layout a little bit more than a conventional kind of Marvel comic did, right? This page here is still somewhat more conventional. You still get here's another good example of the negative space panel, right? Dale Keown is great at drawing the ladies. I mentioned it before, and he's pretty consistent too with the face. I think he's doing a good job. Also doing a good job with not making it too posy, you know, like their body language. He's pretty good with not just the ladies, but the male characters as well, with just basic kind of body language, right? These are interesting. These are ads that I don't think were in all of the comics. They get added in sometimes. You've seen this. Paper's different. It's a better quality. Not sure why. All right, so we get our first kind of, you know, kill it shot of Speed Freak, and of course it's got a few tropes that I enjoy. The broken glass, coming in through a broken, or a window that he's broken through, excuse me, and slightly busting out of the panel here, right where the other characters are not. So right at the top here, just bringing in that little bit of chaos, right? Good way to do that. The fact that he's coming in at an angle, of course, right? Everything gets off kilter. All these prior shots are pretty much, you know, flat horizons. That's what you do when you're an artist. You figure out the storytelling, right? How to tell the story most effectively. And yeah, Speed Freak also, if you compare with the cover, even here, I mean, they're trying to kind of reproduce it. They're using that parallel line screen tone here, which kind of works. But again, he's a little clean. Not bad, but it's softened up. And I seriously, just real quick, go back to the cover. Like, there's just something way cooler about this kind of rough-hewn line that Keown's using, the screen tone and stuff. Just much better. Again, they're still kind of pushing that Marvel house style on him, I guess. You know, McFarlane's kind of pushed back on that. Liefeld as well, I think. Larson kind of slowly... I don't think anyone got on this case for the extremeness of his stuff, because McFarlane was kind of busting first, you know, busting down those barriers with the stuff he was doing. And Larson was just in the back taking advantage of that. I use Venom as an example, right? Where, you know, McFarlane did design the original kind of look of Venom, but it was just basically Spider-Man with a big mouth and big teeth, right? Not even sharp. And eventually he drew him later a bit, and he only really did 2 kind of storylines in Amazing Spider-Man with Venom. And I think the teeth got bigger and pointy. Excuse me. But Larson definitely is the one who pushed it with the agape kind of mouth wide open, the rows and rows of teeth, and then that big tongue, right? That adds just another... I think the tongue is an important element that we forget about Venom. It adds a grossness to it, right? And like a, you know, subconsciously veiled sexual kind of grossness, I guess. And I won't go any further in with that, but I'm sure some of you know what I mean, right? Yeah. So Larson definitely added that element. And knowing like some of the stuff he plays around with in the Savage Dragon, all the poopy, pippy characters that he creates, which I enjoy. I'm not shitting on them. I think they're funny. And I guess in the last few decades, I haven't read, you know, like more modern Savage Dragon, but I've heard about there's more like, you know, sex scenes and references to sex and sexual elements in it. Again, not that I'm criticizing or I'm some sort of prude. It's his comic. He can do what he wants. And, you know, I haven't read those issues, so I might actually read that and maybe probably enjoy it or laugh at it as it's meant to be, just entertaining, right? But yeah, there's just something lacking with SPEEDFREAK and his depiction here. Not in the layouts or anything, but just the cleanliness of it, I guess, is, you know, I know where this is going, so it's kind of annoying to see, or it feels like, you know, Marvel are trying to, you know, I wouldn't say hold Dale Keown back, but maybe keep him like Marvel, keep him house style. Like these pages still, you know, there's some action going on, but in between, you know, they're a little more pedestrian, maybe because the Hulk's not there yet, right? I was talking about that kind of use, so maybe that's what it is. But I feel it maybe in this case diminishes SPEEDFREAK a little bit, right? Because, yeah, of course, like, as the Hulk comes in, the art just kind of levels up a little bit more on this page. And we're basically getting the same shot we got of SPEEDFREAK with the Hulk. Hulk also crashing through a window, so there's going to be a huge window bill for this high school reunion, or the high school that's holding the high school reunion, I guess. And coming at us at an angle, we got some good foreshortening here. The face is great, right? We've talked about Dale Keown and his facial expressions. If you can hear that, that's the city truck that cleans the street driving by. It's a busy day outside today. And yeah, just a great, cool Hulk shot, right, that you would want on a t-shirt. And so, yeah, just compared to those prior pages, the action does keep up a bit more. We're using a lot more of those. I'm just going to start calling them like excitement lines or drama lines. Drama lines is not bad. Here it's more like speed lines, right? So these are, I would call drama lines. Of course, Kirby kind of came up with that originally, I'm pretty sure. Maybe he copied off someone else, but he certainly popularized it. Yeah, I would almost say there's a kind of a Kirby feel to the layout here. And the positions of the Hulk and stuff. So Dale Keown not spending too much time on these cards here. Excuse me. Trying to get through the issue deadline, right? So again, I've said this about prior Hulk issues, drawn by Dale Keown but inked by someone else. Feels like these last few pages of every issue, he's not, you know, cheaping out on the layouts or the level of storytelling or the number panels or anything, but maybe the art is a little more unfinished, and we're getting, you know, to stuff that to me doesn't really look like Dale Keown, like down here, right? Even here, the Hulk doesn't. I mean, SPEEDFREAK, I can kind of read Dale Keown from the layout of his position and stuff and the foreshortening, but everything else, you know, I could almost believe it's another Marvel artist or you know, run-of-the-mill artists, I'll put it that way, not to insult anyone, you know, that aren't necessarily very in view or popular at this era or any other, just kind of a house style Marvel thing, which, you know, I never really do associate with actual Dale Keown art. But looking at this page here, maybe a bit of the deadline-itis and inker's picking up some of the slack. Art's looking a little bit different. Faces are still pretty consistent here, as consistent in that they look like Dale Keown faces. This whole sequence is pretty cool. So oddly, the Hulk uses the fire hydrant here. Or no, okay, so let me read this properly. So SPEEDFREAK cuts his fire hydrant out, okay, and somehow falls on top of it, and the Hulk, I'm not quite sure. It doesn't really explain it here. You can't dodge me forever. So the Hulk's dodging. Fire hydrant gets cut open. I see. He falls. Okay, he runs into the spray of water, and Hulk just adds to it and punches him. Just odd. Odd bit of storytelling, but it's the end of the issue, and they got to move on, I guess. Hulk grabs Rick's friend, jumps out through the window he broke coming in. And next day, I guess someone died from this whole event here. And not to be insensitive, it is an imaginary story, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Not a real person. And, trying to cram, I guess, a lot of storytelling in this last page to move on to next issue. And once again, other than maybe the sequence at the bottom here is pretty close to Dale Keown. All this other stuff here, this isn't bad. The facial expressions are still very good. But yeah, it feels a little more subdued. And the number of panels is pretty crazy on this page, I gotta say. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, you're not going to see a lot of that at Image with Dale Keown, I don't think. There we have it. That's the end of this issue. So, Incredible Hulk, issue 388. Any questions, comments, concerns, let me know in the comments below. Ask me any questions, see if I have an answer. If you have some interesting tidbits, let me know about it. I love to hear that stuff, and I do tend to reply to most comments. Those of you who are subscribed and are still following along and watching the videos, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being there. Everyone else who are watching videos but are not subscribed, please do so. It really helps us out. It's an easy, quick step for you and helps get us out there to other people, other like-minded people who might like this kind of content and video reviews as well. So everyone out there, thank you for watching and hope you have an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at kingcomics.ca, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby. Like!